Welcome to the Property Records Industry Association's Leadership Education Curriculum. This chapter will provide an overview of the Association Work Product Accomplishments from 1999 through 2009. Nearly an all-volunteer legion, PRIA members work together to produce products that have value to the broad, interdependent property records industry community. In June 1999, PRIA released its standard for real estate document formatting for the paper documents, including legibility, margin requirements, print specifications, and administrative content principles and standards. This paper represents the collaborative efforts of the public and private participants of the task force and took over 14 months of dialogue and comments to reach this final version. It's a fine example of what PRIA is capable of publishing for the betterment of the property records industry. In May 2001, the Recorder's Guide to Revised Article 9 was released by PRIA. It is an authoritative work designed to educate and teach recorders and clerks how to record and understand UCC filing statements recorded in their offices. It was developed to be used in conjunction with the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws' revised model law for dealing with financing statements. Published in February 2002, Indexing Standards is designed not only to provide recording offices with recommended standards, but also to educate private industry as to the best practices in the use of names in documents so that document preparers will enter names in ways that can be more accurately indexed in land recording and title plant systems. Developed and published in June 2002, Notary Standards for Paper Documents provides the essential information for standards and principles in the recording process. Electronic recording redesigns the real estate recording process. E-recording specifically redesigns the method of presenting real estate documents to the county recorder and returning the documents to the closing agent, the lender, or mortgage servicer. The goal of e-recording is to create efficiencies whereby costs are reduced for both the county recorder and the customer. However, because the delivery vehicle changes under e-recording from manual to electronic, other technologies may be introduced to the process to represent the real estate information to be recorded. For example, scanned images, electronic documents, or electronic data, which redesigns other processes within the recorder's office, such as document examining, indexing, or fee collection. In March 2003, PRIA stepped up and wrote model legislation to help recorders across the country handle the confidential nature of information on DD-214s, the document provided by the military when a service person is discharged. The Model Act provides definitions, acceptance policies, maintenance of the record, forms of access, access restrictions, request form samples, methods for handling prior records, and time limitations on confidentiality for military discharge records. PRIA has addressed records access and privacy concerns through a variety of venues, including privacy roundtable discussions and PowerPoint presentations, which are available through the Members Only section on the PRIA website. In May 2006, PRIA published XML version 2.4 for public comment. It was subsequently adopted by the PRIA membership in July 2006. PRIA published an electronic recording iGuide in September of 2006. It was also adopted in July of 2006. These documents are available in the Members Only section of the PRIA website. In October 2004, PRIA was invited to be a registered observer to NACUSL's Uniform Residential Mortgage Satisfaction Act work group. The purpose of the work group was to address the need for uniform statutory procedures and remedies dealing with the problems of erroneous and outdated lien information not being removed from real estate titles in a timely manner. Through surveys and studies, industry leaders recognized the need and desire for improved communication at the local level. A structured forum was needed to provide industry members the opportunity to discuss issues and network more effectively with their industry partners. PREP, the Property Records Education Partners, was organized to address those needs. Sponsored by PRIA, PREP chapters are located throughout the nation, operating on a local, regional, or state basis. All sectors of the property records industry are encouraged to become PREP participants. In April 2005, PRIA released a white paper on first-page indexing requirements. The hope and intent of this paper was to stimulate discussion from the recording industry participants to formulate a standard that addresses the information that should be required on the first page of each real estate document to facilitate the collection and dissemination of this information. In April 2005, PRIA served as an observer for NACUSL's Uniform Real Property Electronic Recording Act. The Act authorizes the receipt, recording, and retrieval of documents in electronic form. A complete list of counties' e-recording is available on PRIA's website. Members only may access contact information for these counties. The list is updated quarterly. Privacy and Public Land Records, Making Practical Policy, is a white paper by the Property Records Industry Association. It was finalized in January 2006. This white paper has presented a multitude of issues faced by the land records industry and offered recommendations for what are considered either best practices or model legislation considerations as technology and privacy concerns evolve. PRIA Model Legislation, Social Security Number and Privacy Protection Act, also known as the SNAP Act, was published July 2, 2006. It includes key elements of personally identifiable information, redaction, and document preparer liability. The PRIA iGuide is designed to assist individuals who are implementing e-recording and the PRIA XML standards by providing helpful information and sample XML data. The guide also gives a brief background of the PRIA effort, followed by an overview of the data architecture and sample XML data. The Mortgage Industry Standards Maintenance Organization and PRIA have coordinated efforts since PRIA's inception. That coordination led to a formal alliance agreement on March 2, 2006. Among other things, the agreement provides cross-membership for key staff and resulted in the PRIA e-recording dataset being fully integrated into the MISMO Logical Data Dictionary. The Technology Committee is responsible for electronic recording updates. The e-recording XML workgroup has been on a bit of a sabbatical since wrapping up the version 2.4.1 DTD in September 2006. But all that is changing with an aggressive late summer and fall agenda. The workgroup is focusing on migrating the PRIA e-recording XML from an attribute-oriented DTD standard to an element-oriented W3C schema. Additionally, they will be working on a proposal for the use of SOAP in version 3 in place of the current request-response envelopes. The Legislative Education Workgroup has created a guide to assist members of PRIA and PREP chapters in educating state and federal legislators about PRIA and its goals, as well as the need to impose adequate consequences for malfeasance when dealing with the legal issues of privacy as related to land recording matters. The work group needs to address this subject by a concerted unified front where the Property Records Industry Association is defined as a resource as well as an active participant in counseling for quality legislation on these issues. This is only a guide, a suggested tool, to be used by members of PRIA and PREP chapters as members approach elected officials for those specific discussions. The purpose of the e-recording XML iGuide is designed to assist individuals who are implementing the PRIA XML standards by providing helpful information and sample XML data. Although it is not intended as an XML tutorial, certain aspects of XML that are important for the proper implementation of the standard are highlighted. The guide will also give a brief background of the PRIA effort, followed by an overview of the data architecture and sample XML data. PRIA was founded on the principle that the business and government sectors of the property records industry will be more efficient and effective if they work together to develop consensus to address the challenges that impact both sectors. The mortgage industry is focusing on mortgage fraud. The title industry is focusing on title fraud. Realtor and appraiser groups are focusing on professional conspiracy frauds. All the while, local, state, and federal law enforcement are inundated with prosecuting all of the many varieties of land fraud. In March 2006, PRIA created a cooperative partnership with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Since that time, FBI agents have been providing land fraud presentations across the country via PRIA's PREP chapters. The Archival, Backup, and Disaster Recovery Committee is currently addressing the preservation of recorded permanent records that result from real property transactions. Recording electronic images on roll microfilm, a best practices white paper. The simplicity and human readability of microfilm substantially differentiates it from its digitized and digital counterparts. When the steps outlined in this document are followed, microfilm requires relatively little attention to achieve its preservation potential. Using today's document scanning and microfilm technology, properly produced, processed, and stored microfilm can be a very reliable and cost-effective asset in a multi-layered records preservation program. PRIA was invited by the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws to participate as a registered observer to monitor and/or assist in gathering data from across the United States, evaluating transfer on death deeds or beneficiary deeds, which allows an owner of real property to execute a deed that names a beneficiary who will obtain title to the property at the owner's death without going through probate. The Uniform Law on Notarial Acts was created by NACUSL in February 2008. This uniform law defines common notarial acts and provides for the recognition of notarial acts performed in other states and in foreign jurisdictions. It does not prescribe the qualifications of notaries public or other officers empowered to perform notarial functions, nor does it establish the procedure for their selection or term of office. The Bulk Records Access Work Group defines the issues around the sale of bulk records, including who is purchasing, the intent of the purchaser, how access is being provided, and cost and resale of records in an effort to establish best practices that can be applied and uniformly accepted across the industry. An e-recording guide for recorders was adopted by PRIA in July 2009. It is a non-technical guide for recorders who want to implement electronic recording and includes a project plan template. PRIA anticipates the release of e-recording schema XML following intellectual property rights and public review in November 2009. E-recording security considerations white paper was adopted by PRIA in July of 2009. PRIA anticipates the formal release of this white paper following intellectual property rights and public comment in November of 2009. Models of e-recording, a revised continuum, is a white paper on the practices and realities of e-recording over the past 10 years. The white paper was adopted by the association membership in July of 2009. PRIA anticipates a formal release of the white paper following intellectual property rights and public comment in November of 2009.